Hi, my name is Ethan.
And I'm Olivia.
We work as docents at the Loeb Art Center. This is the third episode in our series Nature and Art.
Today we will be looking at 3 works from the Loeb's extensive photography collection. They come from 3 artists, Ansel Adams, Callahan, and Tanya Marcus, who all photograph nature with different approaches to context. Context is that which surrounds something and allows it to be understood. Because nature is all around us in a 3-dimensional space, photographers have to be extremely mindful of what they choose to include or not include in their photographs, which are most often 2-dimensional works. This helps them do things like putting a large outdoor space on the paper while keeping the scene still legible, emphasizing a single object in a scene of where there could be many, and conveying an artistic message. In this video, we will be discussing how these artists contextualize, decontextualize, or recontextualize nature in their photographs.
First, we will look at Moon and Half Dome, Yosemite National Park, by Ansel Adams. Adams was famous for his detailed, high-contrast, tonally rich black and white landscapes of the American West. He made this photograph in 1960. We use the word made rather than took because Adams himself stressed that a photograph is crafted and designed by an artist, not just recorded by a machine. Adams' compact, vertical view of the Half Dome is in stark contrast to so many landscape images that rely on a horizon line and horizontal orientation to provide broad context for natural features. But his choices of framing, exposure, and darkroom printing provide context in a different way. Framing refers to the work done by an artist in the field to capture the vista before them within the constraints of a photograph. Nature photographers are faced with the impossible task of impressing upon their audience a feeling perceived using all 5 senses through a single frame which can only be interpreted through sight. In order to do this, they must determine what aspects of their subject are crucial in communicating this. In Moon and Half Dome, Adams captures the feeling of the landscape through the repetitive motif of halves. He does not capture the namesake domed half of the half dome, rather he pictures the much more intricate, sheer face of the rock. By carefully positioning himself, Adams pictures half of the face of another rock, which appears in the foreground, entirely black, so as to not distract from the majesty of the half dome. The moon itself echoes the motif, captured in its waxing, gibbous phase between half and full. While taking this photo, Adams used an orange filter. This lowered the exposure, making the rock in the foreground darker and revealing the detail in the gibbous moon. Adams was able to draw even more detail out of the moon during the final step of the photographic process, development. Using his incredible talent in the darkroom, Adams heightens the attributes which convey the feeling of the scene. The dark of the rock in the foreground, detail of the half-dome's sheer granite face, and the moon. By both bringing out the fine-grained detail and invoking the unseen through the repeated motif of the half, Adams, in a way, recontextualized the large-scale natural monument through his artistic choices. There are 4 stunning Ansel Adams photographs in the Loeb's collection. You can see them on our website under the Collections tab.
Next, let's look at a work by one of Ansel Adams' students, Callahan. Callahan bought his first camera in 1938 while working at Chrysler in Detroit. In 1941, he met Ansel Adams in one of his workshops. Using both an 8x10 camera and 35mm, he took both straight photographs as well as multiple exposures while photographing nature. In this work, Weed Against Sky, Detroit, Callahan isolates one almost impossibly slender aspect of an urban setting by using a featureless piece of sky as a background. He brings the slender weed to the center and forefront of the composition, if a forefront can even be said to exist in relation to a background that is nearly a void. We don't know what is going on around this weed, but the way it's framed sends the message that, even though it's just a small plant, it has a stoicism and self-sufficiency that warrants its own photograph. In decontextualizing the weed, Callahan emphasizes its form and its own essence, towering over the rest of its intentionally omitted surroundings. The Loeb has a huge collection of Callahan's works, so be sure to take a look at some of the other pieces in the collection if you are feeling particularly inspired by this work. The final work we will be talking about is by Tanya Marcus, a contemporary photographer who lives in the Hudson Valley. This photograph, fallen number 439, is part of a larger series called Fallen. Measuring 3 feet by 4 feet, it is a heavily color-saturated image with no focal point and a plethora of decaying fruits, thorns, twigs, desiccated flower petals, leaves, and a snake, referencing the Bible story of the fall from Eden.
Marcus draws on the gardens, agricultural landscapes, and wild places of the Hudson Valley to make art that explores fundamental questions about life, death, growth, decay, and time.
Marcus created this piece by collecting and deliberately layering, assembling, and photographing a tableau of objects, both living and non-living, that the artist found in nature. With these objects taken out of their original settings, the artist recontextualizes them into an entirely new nature that exists exclusively in the photograph and is, in a sense, made out of the stuff of context. While we, as viewers, see no starter end to the composition, the photographable world is finite. Marcus has meticulously set up this constructed scene and chosen her framing carefully so that it appears as if it is in a boundless world. If you are interested in seeing more photographs by Marcus, the Loeb has one from each of her series, Fruitless, Fallen, and Woven.
Thank you for watching. We hope you have some new ideas about how context can impact your own nature photography and why thinking about context adds dimension to our understanding of a photograph. If you enjoyed this, check out our other episodes in our Nature and Art series, or check out our nearly 5,000 photographs in the Loeb's collection at emuseum.vassar.edu.